Today we are going to be looking at the 5 most important guitar tones for modern worship music. And stick around for number 5 because it could be make or break for some of the songs you're playing. Let's get into the sounds. This first sound I call the everyday driver, and as the name implies, it's the sound I use the most. So I'm going to kick on my light speed, which is going to be my first gain stage, and then a short reverb and a pretty short delay with kind of darker trails. Sounds like this. You can do a lot with a sound like that. It works for up-tempo stuff and down-tempo stuff. If you want to get a little more ambience out of it, you can kick on just a little bit longer reverb trail. But for the most part, this is just a good bass to start things off with. Okay, so now I'm going to attempt that same type of sound, but with some more budget-friendly options. So here we have the OD3, which is really like second cousin to the blues driver. Then the Flashback, the RV6, of course, you're probably familiar with. Tube Screamer we'll get into in a bit, and I'm using the Joyo as my sort of amp sound. Sound number 2 is going to be my lead tone. For that, depending on the song, I might use a little bit longer reverb, but I'm always going to be kicking on a Tube Screamer style pedal into my first gain stage. So here's what that sounds like. I really like stacking gain stages because then I can leave one pedal on and then just turn on another pedal to bring it over the top. Now, some pedals don't play nice with each other, so you might be in a situation where you need to turn one off and turn on another pedal, but for me, these two pedals stack pretty nicely together. Here's the lead sound with this board. I'm going to add the TS9. The third most important tone is a biggie, and it's the swell sound. To get this sound, I'm going to use a reverb with a long trail and a high mix. The goal for this one is to have your reverb loud enough so that when your guitar goes away, the reverb continues. Sounds like this. This is also a great sound for adding subtle ambience, so I like to just use the tip of my finger and then rake across the strings. Sus chord. Or 4 chord. A 1 with the 3rd in it. You can get a lot of mileage out of just that tone. If you're going for the ambient thing and try to create sort of a pad, you can also roll back your tone knob all the way and then just do the same kind of thing but with a pick. And if you're playing a song that needs maximum ambience in a really aggressive sort of way, kick on some dirt. Yep, that's a long trail. I would normally like to run 2 different reverbs for a board even this size, but for now we'll just dial in the RV6 to get the swell sound. Before we get into the next sound, I do want to let you know that I am starting to take consulting calls. Now, this could be a half-hour or hour-long conversation. It might be a one-off guitar lesson, drum lesson, bass lesson, advice about pedal boards, advice about recording, running a worship team, worship leading, music directing. I wear a lot of hats, and if there's any way that I can help you all out in sort of a one-on-one capacity, I would love to do that. If you're interested in setting up a Zoom call with me, just DM me over at Instagram. It's the same name, Getting Better with Dave. I'll leave a link in the description. Let's chat. On to the next sound. This next sound I like to call the squeaky clean. Most of the time I'm going to run with one overdrive on in sort of a subtle way, but for this sound, I want it all the way off. I want it completely clean. And I don't want to lose any high end, so I'm not going to roll back my volume. I'm going to actually turn off my first gain stage. If I'm using this sound in a fast song, I'm going to kick off the reverb and delay and just get that choppy staccato thing. Here's a squeaky clean on this board. And for the short, choppy, funky stuff, and now our last sound. I call this one the wiggle sound. Now, this could look a little bit different depending on the song and depending on what flavor you choose, but the important thing is having some type of modulation. Now, I keep the MD500 on my board because I use different types of modulation, but if you have one particular flavor that's your favorite, maybe just stick with one pedal that does the thing that you love. Now, in the context of a set, I might have 4 or 5 songs that might use a couple different types of modulation, but I almost never use more than one type of modulation for any given song. If you just have a tremolo or you just have a chorus, you might be able to approximate those sounds. If I'm using vibrato, if I'm trying to get that same type of sound but I just have a tremolo, I'm just going to ramp the speed way up. It's not exactly the same thing, but work with the pedals that you have. You can get those sounds if you just make some adjustments. To get the wiggle sound on this board, I've thrown on the Flamma mod pedal. It's got a whole bunch of different sounds within the one very small, very cheap pedal. So for this, I'm going to use the rotary setting. Here's the same type of thing, but with a tremolo. This one they call Vibra. That's it for this one. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep getting better.